it's weird. Like I'm starting to feel like this serious, not anxiety, but responsibility.
Yeah.
That like, that is my only concern. I would rather not shoot or harvest a deer than do it poorly.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like that feels like a huge responsibility to me. It's the first thing people need to do is like establish realistic goals. I think sometimes people get on these kicks of like motivational talks or inspirational this and that. But the reality is like I am not built to play in the NBA, no matter how much I want to. Sometimes I think we need to take a step back and be like, okay, like, hey, what do I want? What am I good at? Do these things align at all? It doesn't mean we can't pursue our passions and things like that. But I think if we can start to establish like realistic goals for like short, medium, and long term, that's really helpful. I think people look often to, I want to be the very best now. And instead of taking the time to go through the process and make smaller goals to get there, because those can be victories in and of itself. You know, we would talk even about like micro goals, even like really tiny things, really small things that show that you're moving in the right direction, because that's a victory. That's a small victory. And that I think allows people to really get the ball rolling, stay moving instead of just focusing on the end point, having some other things along the way that show that it is success, it is victory, even though it might not be the end state.
Hey! It's about to get crazy. It's about to go down. It's about to get crazy. It's gonna be loud. This is our house. We do what we wanna. We'll blow the roof up. Everybody's coming. It's about to get crazy. It's about to go down. It's about to go down.
You are listening to the Gritty Podcast, where we talk about all things gritty. Life is not easy. Life isn't fair. It never was, and it never will be. A good life takes grit, because the best things in life come from hard work, sacrifice, resolve, determination, and perseverance. Because grit means never quitting. It means coming back time and time again until you succeed. So on this show, we talk hunting, we talk outdoors, we talk conservation, we talk family and life. We talk fitness, and we talk strength of body, strength of mind, and strength of character. Prioritize who you are and who you want to be. Get gritty, because life isn't fair, and a little grit can make all the difference. Folks, welcome to the Gritty Podcast. We are here with Chris Spealler. Got Jordan Harbison co-hosting.
Yeah.
And we just did a grunt workout.
We did. It was a good one. I thought it was fun. I feel like it got hard around the 10-minute mark.
Well, I thought we were only going to do it for 10 minutes.
No,
think Chris goes, we're doing this 20-minute workout. We're going to set this up. This is going to be for like our calories and stuff. This is the rows. And then we're going to do the front rack holds.
Yeah.
And then somebody's going to go in the tunnel and get some pain for some gain.
Yeah.
How much weight did you put on that? We did
on the sled.
345.
So 135.
135.
It's not crazy.
No, it wasn't crazy.
But it's annoying.
Mm-hmm.
Just heavy enough to be annoying.
It is.
Can't really run with it.
No.
Can't really, it's just, yeah.
I felt bad because as we were going through the circuit, when the hardest part for me after that 20-minute experience was the actual racking and holding.
Yeah, it was crushing your soul.
It was crushing. It was I just felt my soul leaving my body slowly. And so when I was
for people
holding,
listening,
you were in the tunnel.
He's holding kettlebells in the front rack position on his chest.
And you just hold it like this. Now, Chris said the more you want, if you want to bring more pain, is to actually, bring
drop your elbows.
Yep. And so I noticed slowly over time, those elbows just kind of kept creeping out. But I would be in the tunnel pushing that sled, and he would be on him. And Chris would go do a tunnel push.
No, I would be on him.
Yeah. I was rowing, and you were on him.
While you were I was like, dude, can Jordan go any slower?
That's what it was, yes.
Can Jordan go any slower? These things weigh 1 billion pounds.
Oh, I remember when Jordan came back in after one, you put him down, you were like, that was miserable.
That was
10 minutes
brutal.
left.
Yeah. There was one spot where I watched where you were, I could tell you were a little tired in the tunnel.
Ooh, I hit that at the 10-minute mark because the timer was on the rower.
Yeah.
That's what we were using as our indicator. And he goes, all right, guys, we've got 10 more minutes. And I'm thinking, I look at the timer and I go, oh, I have to go to the tunnel. I thought we were done.
The tunnel of pain.
What's funny is, what's interesting is if you've done CrossFit for a while or any kind of HIIT or circuit training. And when he said, we're going to do this for 20 minutes, right? I'm like, okay, there's a certain pacing that has to take place or you can crush yourself in the last 10 minutes. You've got nothing.
Yeah.
You can be zero.
Yeah.
And when I saw Jordan hit the tunnel the first time, I was like,
dude.
Whoa, dude. He went
down.
balls out on the sled. Boom, boom. And he's back. And I'm like, he's going to hate the 10-minute mark.
Yep.
He's going to hate it.
Yeah.
I learned very quickly, and I was able to finish, thankfully, but I had to learn real quick in that moment to just say, okay, Jordan, let's just finish. Let's just finish, and we'll give our best effort, but let's not be stupid, because that's what I was.
Yeah.
I ran that
I'm
tunnel
I'm conservative. The first two rounds, first round, maybe 2 rounds on a workout like that. I'm really conservative.
On the second half actually started to increase.
Yeah.
I noticed that about watching you is that you were, and Chris was like, okay, he got into a tempo and he just kept his tempo. That's what I noticed about Chris when I was watching Chris. You started in a comfortable tempo, but then you continued to accelerate.
Yeah.
As time went on the latter half too. Both of you both started to.
I don't really know how I'm going to feel or what's going to happen until I do a round.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, now I can gauge how much I can tap into everything. So then the second round, I really get a feel. I know for sure. And then I know that I can go way faster or slower. Sure. And I sometimes whenever there's a workout like that I'm not familiar with and we're doing it for time or as many rounds as possible. If I can do that thing twice, like that first day and then repeat it the next day, I crush the time.
Yeah, you just know. Yeah.
Yeah, because I know, okay, those first 2 rounds, I didn't go fast enough. That first round, I did not go fast enough. Yeah. It's kind of, but there are times where I've completely bonked, and I still have, it's a 20-minute AMRAP and the last 10 minutes are useless. Like my time just tanks.
Yeah.
Not as much anymore. I've been doing CrossFit,
older and wiser
stuff a long time.
Older and wiser.
I think too.
It's the gray in his beard.
It is.
I don't know. I think it's also just a fitness in that space.
Yeah. Totally.
It built it up over time. Mm-hmm. So
that's what I like about the grunt workout is just the way Chris has built it. And if anybody who doesn't know what grunt workout is, you guys need to go check it out because it's on. They can see it. Is it gruntworkout.com?
You got it. Yep.
Gruntworkout.com.
Yeah. Check it out.
And he's built a really comprehensive, basic training platform for people to be able to use equipment and do exercises anywhere. I mean, stuff you can get from Home Depot. I mean, we've obviously got a full gym here. He's got a full gym up in his dojo. So it's like, but he literally this morning walked in and said, all right, and grabbed 3 things. And we were able to have a 20-minute workout that crushed us, felt good. And you probably could just rotate based on when you look at the grunt workout and what he's built. There's things like when you and I did one that one day, we did the kettlebell. What was it? Overhead?
Was it like a farmer's carry?
The farmer's carry overhead.
And then it was overhead and I can't remember.
And then we did that one and it was like 3 movements or 3 things and
7 minutes or 10 minutes.
Yeah.
What I've noticed with the programming that I like, and people were just texting me yesterday a bunch because I posted some of the workout I was doing downstairs, and they're like, what's your programming? What's your programming? And pretty much my programming has been go to Chris Spealler's page and copy something he's done. Right? Like, Jordan's like, what are we doing today? And I'm like,
he does it all the time.
So I wouldn't even call it programming. I would just call it like
Stealing
random workouts, But, for a couple of years I did CrossFit Maine.
Yeah.
And just did
Great
their stuff.
Point. Yeah.
But what I really like about the grunt workout is it's got a lot more, it's tailored more, I feel like, to hunter athletes.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of that in our community. It's cool. We just put up like a post just to kind of get some feedback from our community because we're relatively new and we've seen some good results from it. We've already, not necessarily intentionally, but there are quite a few hunters in our community. There's also like paramedics, firefighters, things like that. And a lot of them, what's cool, have started to use it as like a supplement too. So instead of just like ditching whatever you guys like to do, whether that's powerlifting or CrossFit or whatever that is, instead of just completely abandoning that, they've kind of taken the grunt work stuff and just done it in addition to, because it's really simple. You don't need a lot. Like we did today, we didn't even warm up for it. Not always recommended, but for today's workout, you didn't really need to. So what they'll tend to do is kind of like do their main piece, then add this in. We've got some really good feedback. One of the guys, Ryan, just got, helped his dad. What was it? A mountain goat?
Oh, Ryan Stedman.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was helping, his dad with a mountain goat hunt.
Yeah. And I mean, he sent me some pictures. He's like, dude, the grunt works has been so helpful for me. And he was like on top of the world with this goat,
heavy pack.
On his pack. I mean, and just so cool.
And the backpack, you know, the backpack hiking.
Yeah, the rucking. Yeah.
The rucking is part of your programming every week.
Yeah, we put it in 2 days a week, every Wednesday and every Saturday. So it's already there. And what's cool is people that don't typically do that.
They're getting outdoors.
Yeah, they're getting out and they're actually doing it. They're starting to find, some of the guys will post, they get up at 4 a.m. This one guy lives, I think it's in Florida, and he has this same route that he goes, and it's this bridge that spans over, some big canal or river or something, and it's like his jam. He gets up at 4, throws on the pack and rucks over, does a loop and comes back. And it's been really cool to see people take that on, get outside, experience stuff that they might not, check out like a state park, go to a different loop that they may not, and try a different loading in their pack. Sometimes it's light, 20 pounds. Other times people say they put it at 60 pounds. And so it's been a really neat experience.
Well, for our community, I feel like hiking with the backpack is paramount.
No brainer, right?
Sport specific. Like we talked about this on another podcast, just how, and this is another reason why I like your program, is the simple fact that it's based around functional fitness.
Yeah.
Sure.
And to Brian's point, the backpacking is an essential part of that because that's what we're using when we're outside.
But I also love squats, deadlifts. I want to go heavy. I like to do clean and jerk. I like to work on the snatch. I like that stuff. And I like gymnastic movements because they're challenging and fun.
Well, you think about some of the things that we're experiencing outside, right? Mountains, verticals, that explosiveness to be able to be responsive or react when we're
it's all good. But what I found with the grunt work, like you said, it can just augment what I'm already doing. Yeah. It doesn't impede. And what I like is that and we did this about a week or two before the season started. I would still do some other programming that I was doing, and then I just added the grunt work to it. And what I liked about it was it's so varied and functional. Yeah. And so I'm sitting here doing like barbell stuff. Well, then you want me to lift a sandbag, all awkward and weird.
Which is really what like you're going to be doing outside in the mountains.
That's exactly what I
What do you
at.
mean there's not like a 7-foot cylinder that's perfectly milled to lift?
For my hands, the exact thickness.
Doesn't have the knurling that I want on it? That's weird.
And so what I found was when I'm lifting odd objects and carrying them and doing all this weird stuff, that is what we do like in this moose hunt I was in. And we're carrying like stacks of firewood, like hundreds of yards over. We're chopping trees and all of that kind of grunt work is exactly what this programming is. And then I can still go and do some of these other things that I like to do that I just am in love with. So I feel like it's a great combo. And honestly, the ruck is a big part of. That's disturbing.
Nice. And you do your thing.
Today is Halloween in the Mountain Ops headquarters.
Is a creepy crossdresser
Gosh,
today.
Man.
I don't even know what he is.
I don't know either.
Yeah. But that just happened.
It does scream pedophile.
100%. Yeah. Watch out for my brother. And the red hair.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's I've noticed, we talked about this before a little bit, but just so I like how I also appreciate a lot how when we were doing, because he jokes about it, but he comes to the gym and I go, Brian, what are we doing today? And he goes, well, let's do what Chris Spealler did. And we'll just
this is before grunt work.
This is before grunt work. And now he's like, hey, I was already planning on doing this, but let's add this.
I'm bad. So I would go through your page or someone else's,
Yeah, a little cherry pick.
And I'd be like, yeah, not doing that.
Nope.
Not doing that. Yep. Nope.
Gonna modify that.
I'm not good at those.
Too far outside of my comfort
Here we go. This is a great one.
Yeah.
And it's when you have some programming preset for you, you know, gives you a goal, gives you some of that structure, and it forces you to do the movements and the things you're not good at, which is really where we should be spending a lot of time.
Most of our time.
Yeah.
Do you feel, Chris?
I remember asking Chris years ago, like a couple years ago, first time you were on the podcast. Okay, Chris, well, look, I'm not a very good runner. I really suck at running, really, and I hate it, and it hurts. And then, but I go and do it, and I need to get better at it. But what do I do? How do I get better at it? And you're like, run more. I'm like, yeah, I wanted a different answer. Like, isn't there some hack?
Yeah.
Give me the magic key.
You're like, work.
Yeah.
Run more. It's like, oh, do the thing you suck at more.
Yeah. How do you get better at something? Do more of it. Chris, would you say that for grunt workout, that this is a hybrid program that you've built because people know you for CrossFit?
Yeah, for sure.
And so so for people that are coming in that are either novice, new, maybe never done CrossFit, maybe they don't even work out that much.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be intimidated by the programs that you've created.
No, and that's actually what's funny is that's part of the reason why I wanted to do it is I wanted to have something that people didn't really have to have any training do, you know, in the sense of if you're going to go do some kind of CrossFit specific programming, you need to have some kind of background on what the movements are, or at least you need to like look into it, watch some videos and, oh, that's a muscle up and that's a snatch and that's how to do it. And still it's going to take you some time to really figure out how to do it well. But with grunt work, what I wanted to do is just create something super simple where literally instead of a video, every time we post a workout, it'll have the movements and then we just have images of the movements so people can see what they are. And the movements are simple enough that you can look at the image and say, oh, you know, that's a sandbag carry. Like we might call like a bear hug sandbag carry where you carry it on your chest, or, oh, that's like doing that with a lunge, or this is a burpee, or this is, so we've kept the movements really simple. And a lot of people have just really found that they enjoy that simplicity, even if they're coming from more of like that complex background where it's a lot of CrossFit and some more technical pieces, which has great value. But people that have been in that space for a long time have really found this fun to just go and kind of put your head down, go to work. They tend to be a little bit longer. They tend to have like an element of mental toughness that, you know, you just got to kind of keep going and keep grinding it out because the intensity by nature is a little bit lower. You can't just go completely bananas because of the movements.
Yep.
So it's been a really, I mean, like I said, we've seen like such a huge variety in the community, you know, stay-at-home moms doing this stuff because they don't need to have a lot of equipment. They need a set of dumbbells, a sandbag, and then, you know, their husband makes them a sled, like a sled that they can push and pull out of, you know, weld something together, or they make it out of wood, or it's just really cool. So really friendly, really accessible, easy to do out of your garage at home. Supplement, do it as standalone. Yeah. Try to create a lot of flexibility. Keep it friendly.
Yeah, what I like too is it's not soul crushing. So people should be able to get in there at various levels. Yeah. And they can get out there and, you know, push it, and they can go faster to create more intensity.
For sure.
They can do, you know, a little more weight because your weighting scale is very.
We keep it super like
simple.
Mellow. Yeah, we just keep it light, moderate, and heavy. We're not going to tell people what they have to lift and what they have to load a sled to. It's just like, hey, a moderate weight. What is that for you? I don't care. You know what a moderate weight is for you. So go do that. And if that's more than someone else, that's fine. If that's less than someone else, that's fine. So we try to do that as well instead of having people feel this pressure to have to perform with a certain weight and a certain standard. It's like, no, the goal is to get the stimulus out of the workout.
Yeah.
And as long as you just kind of follow the guidelines that are written in the programming, a couple little notes that we put in there.
It's super simple.
Easy. Yeah.
I remember when I first started doing CrossFit, I was over at my brother-in-law's house, Bryce and Katie's place. And they had a little pavilion they built in the front yard. And they had ghetto weights outside that we got off Craigslist.
Was this that video that you showed me?
Oh, there's a lot of videos.
First started.
And Bryce and I we didn't have bumper plates, so we just dump them in the yard in the grass, you know, and then they'd stick in the mud in Oregon like a, you know, and you'd have to try to lift
up to the barbell.
Yeah, you're like, dang it. You're like digging it out plus lifting it for the next lift. But we would go, remember when I first started, I'm like, they'd list the WOD for the day, and I'd look at it and go, I don't know what any of this means.
Yeah.
Like none of it. And then I would have to go to the main and then try to find a video that demonstrated it. And then I'd look at a video and there'd be like 3 people doing it different ways. I'm like, well, which way is it?
Right.
And
that's old school. Yeah.
And it was really early.
Yeah.
But I started to get the lingo down, started to figure out what the movements were, what each thing was. But there was a learning curve, and it took a while. And I remember the first time I went over there and did it for a couple of weeks, I'm like, this is dumb. Like, nothing's consistent. Everything is a different. I learned what these terms were, but
now
we're not using any of those in 2 weeks. We haven't repeated anything. Yeah. It was really annoying and frustrating. And intimidating, and I kind of bailed out for a while and went back to like P90X, you know, and then P90X, baby.
Yeah, dude.
And then,
what was that guy's name again?
Horton?
That's it.
Tony
Horton, right?
Tony Horton.
Tony Horton's not doing too bad, though, with P90X.
No doubt.
I have a feeling he did pretty well.
Yeah. I mean, it was not a bad workout routine, but I'm telling you, man.
Only gets you so far.
And now... But that's one thing with the grunt is it's been cool Jordan's pretty new. He can just look at it and it's clear. Yeah. So I have a question for you.
Talk to me.
We got Chad Mendez coming in today. We did a podcast with him last week. Uh-huh. He went on a deer hunt, shot a nice buck. He's coming back in. But in that podcast, as we were talking to him, he wrestled.
Yeah.
You know, and you have a long wrestling career up through college.
Yep.
And we were talking to Chad because, you know, he gets into a ring and gets beat up and beats other people up. And you see in the UFC, these wrestlers often are like the winners. Like there's a lot of wrestlers that do really well in the
good
UFC.
Carryover, yeah.
What is it about wrestling that you think, you know, that you think makes a guy do so? Why does wrestling carry over so well into the UFC?
I'm just going to say it, and I might upset some people, and I don't really mind.
I don't really mind.
Wrestling is the hardest sport out there, hands down. Like, I don't care what anybody says. Football's hard, blah, blah, blah. Like, wrestling is so much harder. Granted, I've never really played professional football, but like from the time you're a kid, there's like no escape, right? So even in practice, like you're either getting beat up or you're beating someone up. And I was talking with a buddy of mine who was talking with a friend of ours. I think his name's Jason, or no, he's a jiu-jitsu, and he's like jiu-jitsu ninja, like triple black belt, whatever. Mm-hmm. And he was saying that in a lot of other disciplines that you think of, like whether it's, you know, some form of martial arts or jiu-jitsu or whatever it is, there's whenever they are learning things, there's like a lot of their practices are exactly that, like practicing, going through the movement. Nothing's
punching a bag, but not a person.
Right. Nothing's ever at like the same thing you would experience when you get into a UFC ring, right? So when you step into that octagon, you're in a fight. Yeah. And so, but much of what they've done leading up to that, sparring and things like that, have been kind of like a step in that direction, but like a mock, not in a bad way, but like, you know, that's how they do that safely. And so they can do it. But wrestling's not like that. Wrestling is like, that's like you practice the movements and you learn them and then you drill them and smash your head in doing like horrible drills. And then you wrestle live for sometimes hours. And when you wrestle live, it's the exact same experience that you have when you step out on the mat. And it was cool to hear a guy from another background say that. And I was like, that actually makes so much sense. Like so much of the stuff that we did, obviously there's tons of time drilling, but once it came time to go out on the mat, it's not an unfamiliar pace. It's not an unfamiliar atmosphere. Mm-hmm. We just do it every day anyway.
Yeah.
Where other disciplines, I don't think they really do that.
I heard Joe Rogan talking about it a little bit on his podcast, Wrestling, and why wrestling. And he kind of touched on the same things you said. It sounded like wrestling's just brutal.
It is.
It's absolutely brutal.
It's so hard.
I remember, so I wrestled from very young. I actually started doing like wrestling camps, and then I went all the way up until high school. And I actually had to kind of pick and choose because the wrestling coach really wanted me to join the team. I was actually, and I don't actually tell people this much, but I was actually a really good wrestler.
Kind of a big deal.
Kind of a big deal. At home, I had these leather-bound books that smelled of mahogany. And truth be told, one of my actual that people in high school remember me for is I went to the high school camp, and I remember, to your point, through all the different wrestling matches that I did, I actually went head-to-head with a guy that I used to mess around with on the mats to practice. Well, his name was Sean Curran. He actually went on to win and become undefeated and never lost a match ever, except to Jordan Harbertson. So
his claim to fame.
It's my claim to fame. I was able to, in a match with him before he started his illustrious career, I was actually able to pin him, keep him down, and win that match. And he still today, I actually saw him. Interesting enough, we're talking about this, but I saw him a couple months ago, and he'll always come up to me like, Jordan, you could have had a good career. I don't know what you're doing. He's like, Mountain Op sounds cool, but you could have been a big deal. And I was like, I don't know, man. You obviously took it for what it was. But the thing that I like on your observation and that I agree with is when I did basketball, we were running the court. We were practicing with our team.
Physical.
It was physical. Sure. Football, I played football. We were hitting each other sometimes. Yeah. But the intensity and the amount of intensity that was applied in the match, that even in practice that you were practicing, you can't go half speed.
Right.
You're practicing at full speed as if you're in a real match. And that takes a lot out of you, and you're practicing. And sometimes some guys get injured and they're like, crap, right before we go into the matches. No. But I agree, Chris, with your observation. I don't know if you're going to piss people off, but it's pretty
I heard Jocko. Oops.
Oh, it's pretty valid.
Can you hear me?
So did you wrestle through?
Hello.
Did you do wrestling?
Check.
All the way through high school?
I started when I was 6, and I wrestled through college.
Okay.
So I had some opportunities after that, but was just burnt out, just exhausted. It's
interesting.
Yeah.
And even in the games, I mean, there's a lot of wrestlers that do really well.
Yeah, and I think part of it, too, is the accountability, right? It's this weird dynamic where I don't know of many other sports where in wrestling, it's just you, right?
And there's a clear winner and a clear loser.
Yeah, there's no
the team failed me.
Right, we all lost together.
Yeah. So-and-so jacked it up for us.
Yeah, when I passed the ball.
The punter missed the field goal. We all lost.
Yeah.
No, the punter missed the field goal.
So I thought that, and then the other thing, though, that's weird is, even though you're on your own, and even though it's an individual sport, your points as an individual count toward your team.
Your team, yep.
So it's this weird dynamic of, it's really up to me, and I can't blame anyone else. And however well I do is clearly displayed in front of all these people while you're wearing a spandex suit. And then, however well I do dictates how well my team does, too. So you have kind of this dual accountability of, I remember kids just getting reamed out if they didn't make weight because it doesn't just affect them, right? But it affects the whole team. It's like, what are you doing, bro? You didn't make weight, you just screwed up our whole lineup, and now we have to put second string or third string in there or whatever that is. So it ended up being a really interesting dynamic, I think, where you just don't see that in many other sports. I can't think of anything else where your individual score also goes toward team. Maybe swimming or something like that. But in swimming, it's like no one's trying to beat you up.
No, to your point, it's the contact and it's the intensity. It's the difficulty in wrestling another human being, which I think correlates and transitions over into MMA, where with the games, it's like your guys' team, when you did teams in CrossFit, same principle is applied relatively, right? Your score and everything individually is counting against and carries the team in that when you're not doing an
if you're not doing
it
it like together, working together to accomplish the task.
Yep.
Yeah, I heard Jocko talking about jiu-jitsu similarly, where, he takes his kid to jiu-jitsu and they're wrestling. Boom, boom. They're doing their rolling. And he's like, and then they go to competitions and matches and the kid's losing and losing and losing. And they were talking about kids in sports.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of the conversation with Chad Mendez as well, where Chad's like, he's 5 years old, just gets started in wrestling, and then his dad's driving him to the tournaments and taking him to all these places. And Jocko's oldest kid is like 15, and he said the other day, hey, Dad, I'm glad you made me do this, because at 15 years old, with this many years of jiu-jitsu and all the sucky matches and all the losing and the winning and all, he's like, I'm a man that can handle himself.
Totally.
It's
funny. We were talking about this, and I mean this like the most respect. We've like at our gym and in our community, like we have some people, some women specifically that have taken like women's self-defense, and I'm like, that is awesome, great, and I think it's so cool that they do that and they feel more empowered. And my wife will ask me occasionally, she'll be like, so what do you think? And I'm like, that's great, but it doesn't matter. I feel horrible saying that, but like, here's the deal is if you go to a self-defense class once every 6 months, that's great. Like if you built your self-confidence, that's great. If you feel better about yourself, you learn some stuff, that's great. But when the crap hits the fan and God forbid anything ever happened, you don't have time to think like, oh, what did I learn 3 months ago? Mm-hmm. And I need to do this, this, and this. And that's something that 15-year-old kid, it's innate. That's something and I never thought of that until I started to have those conversations with my wife. Like, there's never been a moment, but it's just because I grew up in that sport, there's never been a moment where I've thought like, whoa, this is a sketchy situation. How am I going to handle myself? I've thought, whoa, this is a sketchy situation, but not like, what am I going to do if someone puts their hands on me? Do I remember? It's like, no, you just act.
You just know.
So if someone wants to, that's what frustrates me, I think, about some of those things is I feel like it's this false sense of security, because if people want to really be like comfortable, confident in those situations, they have to do it frequently.
Yeah.
Like
Chad,
3, 4, 5 days a week, so that when the crap does hit the fan, you're just like,
your body reacts to that situation. Because Chad talked about it in his recent fight in Idaho that he had. They actually showed a video where he had continued to practice as he was sparring with this, fake hook, and then comes with, and that's actually the one that came out and landed and ended the fight.
Yeah.
And I've asked Chad this many times, and you said you define it as flow state. Mm-hmm. You kind of get into this flow state. And I said, Chad, how do you, when you walk into that, or when you come into the octagon, how does it all go down? He's like, you just hope that everything you train for comes out. He's like, you literally you're going into a fight. You don't know how he's going to come. You don't know. So as you're going, your body becomes reactive to the moment, and you start hopefully executing those moves that you've been practicing in camp all along.
And that's from hours and hours of training. That's from the time as a kid's 5 to 15 to be able to say, hey, all those experiences turn into this. And you don't realize that as a kid.
Yeah.
I never thought about that even until I was an adult. And I was like, wait a second, that's like, I've never worried about that. I thought this is a sketchy situation, but not like, how do I handle myself?
You know what shocked me when I was talking to Chad is he's like, he wanted to quit wrestling so bad, and he was talking about how he'd be in the car, and he goes, I hated it. I can remember being in the car driving to a tournament and hoping the car would break down so I wouldn't have
just
to
please
do
God have
the tournament.
Car.
So I wouldn't have to wrestle somebody. And Jocko was saying, also like with his younger kid, he realized that he needs to set his kid up to win more. Mm-hmm. Putting him in a challenging situation over and over and over, but to where he loses every time. Losing isn't fun.
No.
Nobody likes losing.
Nobody does.
So put your kids in different levels. So set them up to succeed. This is a little easy for him. This is a little, maybe he wins 50% of the time, and then he's going to lose, Yeah. And I can remember when I played basketball through high school. I can remember going and playing at various levels where I'd play with guys that I could just dominate. Mm-hmm. And then I'd play with guys my age, peers and stuff. And then I'd go and play with guys that made me just look ridiculously pathetic, And it was really the guys that were far more talented than me that pushed me the most. Better.
Hands down.
Every time I dribble the ball, they take it from me. It was like, freaking, hey, like, this is, like, you think you're good until you are up against someone who's so much better. I think it ties into your statement, with the self-defense. You think you're good until it's real.
Yeah.
And
that's the way I was going from high school to college. There are kids that are really good high school wrestlers. And it's where I grew up. I grew up in Pennsylvania, it was kind of like this shell shock when I moved to Utah. Because kids would be like, I'm a state champ. And I was like, whoa, that's legit. And because in my mind, like state champ in Pennsylvania means, well, first you have to make the team.
Yeah.
Because you're not the only one at the weight class. Second, now you have to go to, depending on if you were like single, double, triple, quad A, whatever it was, generally you had to go to sectionals, place top 3, districts, place top 3, regionals, place top 3, and then you went to state. And that's where, and here it was like, I go to districts and probably most of my bracket isn't filled out. And I made it to states and I placed. And I've been wrestling for 3 years. And I was like, wait, what? So when I started helping like coach here, there's this weird like shell shock of like, wait a second, like.
This is not the same.
No, this is not the same. So that, it's just such a difficult. It's such a hard sport, and it's such a, I forget where I was going with that, but that.
Well, I think like with the self-defense class and the reality is so much different than what you're training for, what you think you're training for.
I remember where I was going. And two, like when we went from high school where kids were, some of these kids were like 2, 3, 4 time state champs in Pennsylvania, which is like unheard of. They have a tournament, they have a match it's literally Pennsylvania versus the world. Like,
yeah.
So they're kind of good at wrestling there, And then these kids would get into a college wrestling room with athletes that they don't know. They are kind of the hot shot coming out of high school and the buzz has been around. And then they bump into the third string guy and just get their face smashed in. And they're like, wait a second, I'm a 2-time state champ and this guy's third string and he just smeared me across the mat.
Yep.
And there were times where I would go home from practice. I was lucky enough to have a guy, Kerry Colott, who is like wrestling Hall of Fame, got third in the world, wrestling the Olympics, amazing. And he was fortunately or unfortunately, he was close to my weight class. So he and I would wrestle and he would kick the crap out of me. Like my face would be so swollen and so sore and I would just get destroyed. But those moments make you exponentially better. It's just so odd, right? How I feel like it's like that with everything.
Well,
adversity.
Listening to that show yesterday with Jocko, it was the Art of Man or Order of Man with Ryan Mickler, and I was listening to them talk, and he was saying how guys will go into a jiu-jitsu gym. They think they're the hottest stuff on the planet. They're tough. They're built. They're everything. They're used to winning wherever they're at. They walk into a real legit gym and then they get crushed. And there's 2 types of people. There's the ones that come back because they never want to have that happen to them again. And those that never come back because they never want that to happen to them again.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
true.
You come back and you learn so you get better so you never have to experience getting choked out again by someone else. But then there's the guy that never comes back because he wants to live in La La Land and be like, you know what? I can handle myself.
I'm the king of the jungle.
It's just this one time, and you can live in your facade and your But you got to pay a price if you want it to be real.
For sure. And it's hard.
It's like that though with everything in life.
Yeah.
I think that's why I think sports are so valuable.
Yeah.
Competition is so valuable because, that's where I like bow hunting because it's so hard. Like 1 minute you're like, dude, I'm the bow hunting God, like, wow, did you see what I just did? Wow. I stocked up, snuck up on, and now I'm eating this thing. My family, I'm a provider. And then you go like through this huge dry spell where nothing seems to work. You work your butt off and it doesn't happen. And it to me, it's like a microcosm of life. Like sometimes you win and sometimes you lose, and it's the people that will keep going back and keep trying that are going to achieve something in life.
It's the people that will do something about those losses, because to your point, or even to Jocko's point, it's when you got the crap kicked out of you by a guy that, you were like, man, I thought I had him, or I thought I could go some rounds, but no, I was humbled, right? You decided to say, okay, then I obviously needed to work a lot harder. Yeah. I need to get to this guy's level. And then let's just say at some point you were able to beat him. There's going to be that next guy.
Oh, always.
But everything that we do in those moments of those losses is really defining moments in what direction. And I always say there's only two options in life: is you're either charging forward or you're retreating. You don't get to sit on the battlefield and just watch it get played out. You either are retreating or you're moving forward. And when you lose, like in battle, you have the option to say, okay, regroup. Mm-hmm. Let's strategize and let's go flank this way. Let's try a new angle, or let's go right up the middle. Yeah. Let's just blitz this thing. And I think I've met a lot of people in my own life that unfortunately have been like those jiu-jitsu guys, or maybe those guys that have wrestled and done sports where when they maybe had a small failure, or maybe they had a really big one. Yeah. They kind of threw in the towel and they're like, I guess this isn't for me. This really isn't my thing. Yeah. And those were those moments that could have really defined their lives and changed, because I'm also seeing some of those individuals and their lives are kind of mediocre and at best.
Well, it was surprising to hear Chad talk about how he wanted to quit at times. Oh, and how he doesn't. He's like, dude, I don't like getting punched in the face. Yeah, like I don't like this. Yeah, but I do like to win. Yep, and I do like the crowd, and I'm good at it.
Like I like being a modern day gladiator.
But we got to let you go. You got to get going. But before you do, how do you help people? You got the gym, you got the things that you do. How do you help someone become a winner? Maybe they haven't won much in their life. Maybe they quit too easily, too often. How do you help them become a winner?
Yeah. I think establishing, like, the first thing people need to do is, like, establish realistic goals. I think sometimes people get on these kicks of, like, motivational talks or inspirational this and that, but the reality is, like, I am not built to play in the NBA, no matter how much I want to, no matter how much I think that's great, right?
What are you talking about?
So it's like, sometimes I think we need to take a step back and be like, okay, like, hey, what do I want? What am I good at? Do these things align at all? It doesn't mean we can't pursue our passions and things like that, but I think if we can start to establish, like, realistic goals for, like, short, medium, and long term, that's really helpful. I think people look often to, I want to be here now. I want to be the very best now. And instead of taking the time to go through the process and make smaller goals to get there, because those can be victories in and of itself. We would talk even about, like, micro goals, even, like, really tiny things, really small things that show that you're moving in the right direction, because that's a victory. That's a small victory. And that, I think, allows people to really get the ball rolling and stay moving instead of just focusing on the end point, having some other things along the way that show that it is success, it is victory, even though it might not be the end state yet. And making sure that stuff's realistic, it's funny to me when I hear people talk sometimes about, I hear it sometimes in the CrossFit world, hey, I want to win the CrossFit Games. I'm like, that's cool. Now, are you willing to do what it takes to get there? They're like, well, yeah. And then you start to say, well, here's what it's going to take. And they're like, well, I don't know if I have that time. I'm like, well, then you're not willing to do it. It's like, well, I don't know if I can do this. Well, then you're not willing to do it. So I think sometimes when people actually ask the question, the hard question, like, hey, here's what I want. Am I willing to do it? And it's okay that answer might be no. I think that's what people need to realize is it's okay if they aren't willing to do that. But maybe what's like this other goal? Or what if we pull it back a little bit? Or what if we have like, instead of winning the CrossFit Games, what if you set a goal to compete in 3 local competitions this year? You know, for me, I look at it this way, because going on a hunt soon.
Yep.
And my expectations are very low because I'm super inexperienced. So what I want to, like, my goal is to enjoy the experience and learn as much as I can through that. And if I can harvest a deer in that process, that's great. But my goal, I'm not going into it just saying I want that. My only goal is to,
right.
That's not it, right? If I can do that, that'd be great, right?
Yep.
But I have to have some other things along the way so I can walk away from a successful week.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, on that note, I'm looking forward to it. So you're going on your first bow hunt in how many years?
Probably about 20.
Which is your second bow hunt.
His second bow hunt in 20 years.
Yeah.
So we're going to go to Ohio.
Yeah.
It's
OHIO.
you and myself and Casey.
Mm-hmm.
Cam Haynes might be there. We might have a couple other folks.
I don't want to intimidate him.
Yeah, we don't want to intimidate him.
Tell him it's okay.
Yeah. Hey, buddy, if you miss, it's going to be all right.
It's going to be okay.
You're going to be out there, too, with Jeff Janis.
Yeah.
Jeff Janis from he played for the Green Bay Packers, I think, and then was at the Cleveland Browns.
So it's going to be cool. We're going to have a cool group, and we're just going to chase some whitetails, and we're up there with my friend Owen Murphy. He owns Latitude Outdoors, and yeah, we're going to get in there, and it'll be fun. I think it's this is my second year hunting whitetails. Like I'd never hunted them before. And once I went kind of east side and started hunting whitetail, I'm addicted.
Yeah.
And for us Western guys who have just sort of ignored it because it's not mule deer or blacktail or something.
That's cool.
It's not as Western.
Yeah.
It's like we're missing out because whitetail are just fun, and they're abundant. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
They're aggressive. They move a lot during the daytime. It's the rut is heavy at that time. You just don't know what's going to happen. You might see 2 bucks fighting. You'll see them grunting and rutting and chasing does. And so it's, what I like about it is, for a new hunter is, most of the time you're in a blind or you're elevated.
Yeah.
You get a shot you can practice sort of drawing your bow on an animal and then taking your time to make the shot if things go well. Where when you're doing sort of Western style hunting, you're spotting the stock.
Small windows, right?
Yeah, it's like you got to be pretty quick. You got to calculate yardages. You got to be able to. It's a little more. I think it's like if I was bringing my daughter hunting, I kind of want her in a ground blind or a stand where the animal stands there and it's kind of presenting a nice, comfortable, no rush
scenario,
shot. Yeah, at close range.
Yeah.
And so it gives a new hunter a lot of confidence when they have a clean and efficient kill.
Yeah.
And there's no suffering, and
and
you're
that's what's
able
funny
to do
is, like, that's of everything, like, of my only concern in this whole thing is exactly that. That's it. Yeah. And it's weird. Like, I'm starting to feel like this serious, not anxiety, but responsibility.
Yeah.
That is my only concern. I would rather not shoot or harvest a deer than do it poorly.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, that feels like a huge responsibility to me.
It's not something that you really take lightly.
No, and it's weird. Maybe it's because I'm older. Maybe I don't know what it is, but it's like I can already tell, like, out of everything, every scenario that, could cause concern, like, I really could care less if people around me are like eons ahead of me and that much more experience. I like the experience. I don't care about being the new guy. I don't care. I'll roll out there in a pair of Dickies and like a car. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. But it's that's what I care about. And it has nothing to do with anybody else, but it's just like my responsibility that if I'm going to take that step, I just want it to be done right.
Well, and if you bow hunt long enough, something doesn't go right.
Yeah.
And then when you have to watch that or deal with it, it's so the shots I take now are not the same shots I took before.
Yeah.
Because I've learned from that experience, and I've witnessed the suffering of an animal, undue suffering that I caused. And so there's just shots, things that I'm more careful with than I used to be.
For sure.
You know, I was a little naive maybe, or just eager, you know, and, but that's why I say there's nothing that knocks your confidence down in archery than poorly hitting an animal and then trying to find it or track it for days or seeing it suffer, or even just missing. Yeah. You're just like, what?
How did I miss?
An elk is a large target. Okay. When you don't hit it anywhere, not in the butt, the neck, the shoulder,
and you're within a comfortable range.
Yeah.
too.
And you don't hit it anywhere. That's like humbling beyond reason.
You can't hit the broadside of a barn, buddy.
It's like wounding. It's bad enough, and it's horrible, and it's in a different way. Yeah. When you miss completely, it's like you weren't even close, bro. Like, and I think that's why I say, setting a new hunter up for success, having them be able to make that clean and efficient kill is everything. And once you've done it once, and in reality, I just got back from Canada, British Columbia, wolves everywhere, giant grizzly bears, 9-footers roaming everywhere. Nothing, no moose, caribou, mountain goat, nothing dies pleasantly.
Yeah.
In that savage wilderness. Nothing. No, it's not going to end well. Yeah. They don't just go to retirement home and sip on vodka and die in their sleep.
Take a nap, not wake up.
Something, when it gets weak or it can't survive, or if it's not the weather that slowly takes it, it's an injury or sickness, but it's going to get ate by something in a bad and
it will be
horrible
consumed
way.
in a vicious way.
I watched that video on DIY Alaska, and there was a mountain goat in Kodiak that's traveling from one range to another. Well, you can imagine when a mountain goat is not in the cliffs, sit and duck.
Yeah,
it's a fish in a barrel.
Yeah,
like this is. But they'll cross these open spaces to go to a different mountain range. Maybe they're looking for nannies. Maybe they just need feed, whatever. And down there, anything can kill it. They're just not. Yeah. They need cliffs.
Yeah.
And this 10-foot Kodiak brown bear just sees it, and he starts running it down. And it's just like running, and this bear is just
making making up ground pretty quickly,
eating up the ground.
You know what?
And that little white goat's like, and that thing just grabs that goat and just destroys it.
You know what I saw? This was insane. I saw this. This was the most as the gnarliest thing I've seen in nature. It was a pack of orcas that were going after a seal.
Yeah.
This is messed up.
They're savage.
Once they realized the seal was basically done for,
they let their offspring
basically played with it.
Yep. Throw it in the
teased
air.
It. I was like, I couldn't watch it. I was like, that is messed up.
So messed up.
Yeah, but you think about it.
Get it done with, bros. Stop being punks.
Stop playing with your food.
Yeah, get it done with. Because that was.
Well, that's why I try to tell people, nature is savage. It is not there's no morality, no ethics, no compassion, no mercy. Nature is not. Humanity is unique in that.
Yeah.
A wolf doesn't go, we have killed
this kill. Yeah, it doesn't have the same empathy that you do. And as an ultimate predator, us being one of the ultimate predators out there, as we're killing or harvesting these animals, we're doing it in a very
that's why I
ethical
say
and
you
humane
slip an arrow
way.
Through the ribs and it bounces and goes, what happened? And then it just faints from blood loss, or it just loses blood pressure and just falls over. It's the most efficient,
right?
It's a gift. That kind of death is a gift.
And I think about it too, like the other side of that spectrum too, is I think like one of the things I am looking forward to is just like, you know, if that does happen, or if I see someone else go through that experience, whatever, for me to see it, I think is just helpful because, you know, like I eat meat every day.
Yeah.
And that happens in one way or another, right? At some point, that's a live animal. And I think for me, just like, to realize like, hey, just the value of that. You know what I mean? Just I don't know if value is the right word, but just like taking that extra second and being like, wait a second, like this is like a piece of the cycle. You know what I mean? When that food's on my plate,
you appreciate it.
Yeah.
I think your appreciation factor for that meat that you're consuming is heightened because when you have a nice beef steak that's cooked up, grilled, cooked to perfection, medium rare, whatever your choice is, you're eating that. And I think oftentimes most of us don't give any thought to where it come from and any of what you just described. But my hope is for you is you sit there with your family, your wife and kids, and you cook them up some of this whitetail that I hope you get one. It's going to be a different experience sitting at that table, taking something from the field to the table and going, this is something that I like. I'm a pretty badass dude, but your dad freaking just provided some meat for y'all. I'm a provider.
Did you see Rich Froning's post the other day where he's got a backpack on, camouflage, and a gun strapped to his back?
I didn't see it.
He put it on his Instagram, and he said, I'm just going to leave this photo right here. And then
that's all he said.
That's all he said. And of course, you know, bananas, right? And you had a lot of people that were like, Rich, you don't need to kill anything. Like, you don't need to go out in the woods and kill anything. And it's like,
but I'm doing it
but
anyway.
You kill it with a checkbook when you buy beef and chicken and pork and all of that, or
the process happens.
The process is going to happen one way or another, whether you're involved in it directly or indirectly.
And I think I'd rather experience that and be involved in it, just to be like, this is reality.
Yeah,
let's not live in the
clouds. This is how our ancestors survived. This is
just even now,
and this is how we're surviving now.
You go to the grocery store and you get that pack of chicken or beef. Like, guess what, homie? That at one point was cruising around.
Yeah. Right.
Like, and it's a life.
What I feel like is people have a disconnect between the life that a chicken has and a cow. Like, that's just okay. But to kill a wild animal is something more precious and rare. And
I guess.
And so I think that a lot of times that they have that disconnect. I don't think they deny. They just have a hierarchy of animals in their mind.
That's
and
a good call,
these are okay to kill, and these are not okay to kill. Rather than a life is a life, you know?
Yeah.
But I think that it also removes them from the accountability of what they do kill on a daily basis.
Yeah. Because it still happens.
It's still a killing of a life. And so when you go out and do it yourself, like if Rich goes out and shoots deer.
Yeah.
He takes responsibility for the life in a different way than when you go buy it at the store. And the appreciation for that life and the drive for conservation and to conserve that resource is 10 times higher when you're partaking of it. Mm-hmm. Most of the people that are up there, you don't need to kill it, also don't put a dime or any effort into managing or perpetuating whitetail deer herds. Mm-hmm. You know, and so, or any other wild game animal, where when you start hunting and you start pulling from that, you're like concerned about the welfare of those herds.
The population.
Yeah. You're like, okay, I want to make sure that we have good habitat, that there's this disease that's coming. We need to put money into protecting this herd from that. We need to reduce how many we're taking out of the herd this year because they struggled because of wolf predation or whatever it is. And you just care.
Yeah.
And so I get worried about a country of citizens that loves the idea of the animals, but doesn't actually
do anything to take care of them
or participate in nature in a way
Yep.
that gives them a drive to actually be engaged with the process. And it doesn't just roll on automatically. You know, it's a very hands-on process today, because we look at, I think I did that stat the other day. It's wildlife has access of untouched land. There's some 20% or 18% of our nation that's untouched.
Yeah.
The rest is fully occupied by humans and cities and such. And so it's not an accurate number, but still we're becoming a one species planet, or we dominate, you know. There's a lot of humans out here.
Yeah.
And so I think it's good for people to go out and partake of nature and experience it, because it creates a connection.
Totally.
So I'm excited.
I'm excited for both of you, and I like your comments, Chris. I'd close with just your temperature in going into this situation to me is just I can really appreciate it, because I think oftentimes a lot of people go into this not really considering or thinking about the things you're thinking about, which is actually taking the life of that animal into consideration, making sure that you're the most prepared, whether it's physically, whether it's with your equipment, to be as capable as possible to make that shot as effective as possible. And bow hunters, like you said, anybody knows who's hunted long enough. It doesn't always go right. But if you've done everything you can up to that point, what you've done is you've given that opportunity and of that animal a fair chase, we like to say. And so I hope everybody that listened to this, I look forward to the follow-up, you know, like you said, your other thing that I think people need to also be mindful of is not being able to go out and harvest something is not a loss, because you take away from that hunt for you, especially where you're at in your hunting experience. You're soaking everything up like a sponge, saying, I'm going to gain and learn everything from this experience that I can then apply to others. Yeah. And so those are some good perspectives from Chris.
When you go to release an arrow, same with the trigger on the rifle. When you go to release an arrow, it's always a gamble.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, there's always a risk that it's not going to go well. And you're balancing on this edge of, I'm pretty sure I'm capable. I'm pretty sure this is the right scenario. I'm pretty sure that this is going to drill this deer and it's good. You're right there and you're confident, and then you're doing it. But there's always that chance. And where you are on that spectrum of risk and how much risk you're willing to take is a little different for everybody.
Sure.
And that's where I think your ethics come into play, right? It's like, okay, am I the guy that's like, well, I got a 10% chance, here we go. Or are you the guy that's like, hey, I'm 90% sure, here we go. And, but at the end of the day, one thing about it is it's real life. It's life and death. You are killing something, you can't reverse that.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time I did that, and I shot an animal and it died. It was a bizarre feeling, because I had a sincere moment of like remorse.
Sure.
You know, and at the same time, excitement. And I'm anxious to see how you handle all of that. So
me too.
Hopefully we get a monster walking out and
good old mature buck with lots of meat you can bring home to mama
spread
and
his
the kiddos.
seed across the nation, and so he's lived a good life, and it's time to retire him.
Just make sure, Chris, that before you go, you snatch all your wads. Okay? Make sure you're snatching all your wads.
Yeah,
sweet.
I'll wear a T-shirt that says that.
All right, where can people go to check out Chris Spealler?
You guys can check out my Instagram is just Spealler. Gruntworkout.com is that program we talked about,
and that's also on Instagram.
That's Grunt Workout. Yep. Yeah.
Is it at Grunt Workout, or
you got it?
Yep.
At Grunt Workout.
At Grunt Workout, and
like we said earlier, if you want to go check it out and become a member, so you can get access to all of these exercises that we've been participating in, is to go to gruntworkout.com.
And it's super. Oh man, it's so affordable and easy.
What is it a month?
$15 a month.
Oh gosh, you guys are going to spend that in a day on your freaking meal.
Yeah,
you know, a person's going to go to fast food and end up spending $15 at Wendy's.
Yeah,
you know, so you might as well just invest in your health and well-being and get some good information from Chris and his team.
For sure.
Yep. And you have plans to keep adding to it and growing, and
we just want to bring value to the community, you know,
That's
and
awesome.
whatever that looks like in the coming months, year, like we're just open to that. Goal is to keep it simple. We're not going to change the structure. It's, you know, it is what it is, and we've seen some great success. So we want to keep that simplicity and that value there.
And is there community around it?
Yeah. Private group Facebook page people can join, so they can hit me up through that, talk to one another.
Share their results.
Exactly. Yeah. We did some stuff on Strava with some rucks and things like that for a while. So it's been good.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris.
You bet.
Everyone, thanks for listening to Gritty Podcast. Leave us a review on iTunes. We always appreciate that. If you give us a 5-star or don't do one at all, you know, I used to say just leave us a review. You know, we
if you
just
got
want the
nothing
truth.
nice to say, then just don't
I'm
say
over
anything.
that.
Yeah.
So
Reviews only, huh?
that's right. Thanks, folks.
Stay gritty.
Despite our ever-changing, ever-indignant world with its growing ignorance of and indifference to the ways of the wild, I remain a predator, pitying those who revel in artificiality and synthetic success while regarding me and my kind as relics of a time and place no longer valued or understood. I stalk a real world of dark wood and tall grass stirred by a restless wind blowing across sunlit water and beneath star-strewn sky. And on those occasions when I choose to kill, to claim some small part of nature's bounty for my own, I do so by choice, quickly, with the learned efficiency of a skilled hunter. Further, in my heart and mind, I know the truth and make no apologies for my actions or my place in time. Others around me may opt to eat only plants, nuts, and fruits. Still others may employ faceless strangers to procure their meats, their leather, their feathers, and all those niceties and necessities of life. Such is their right, of course, and I wish them well. All I ask in return is no one begrudge me, and all of us who may answer the primordial stirrings within our hunter souls, my right to do some of these things myself. What you just heard is a quote from M.R. James. We truly live in a world that is largely ignorant and indifferent to the ways of the wild. And although some regard us as relics of a time and place no longer valued or understood, we have the opportunity to change the way these people view the hunter and the hunt. We can share our experiences and nature's bounty with those who employ these faceless strangers. And by so doing, we make a difference, not just for ourselves, but for the wild animals in the wild places we care so deeply about. Never stop sharing your passion for hunting and the outdoors. Our wild animals and our wild places depend on it.
This is Ty Stubblefield, and you're listening to the Gritty Bowman.
Gritty Bowman.